So I'm just going to use orders and probably people is all I need to use. Let me see who we got on the call real quick, because I had something prepped for somebody specifically. He's not even on. Oh well. All right, so we got orders and people, and then we have the joining on region here. Close that out. And wait for that to load up. Let me look at this question again. So using Superstore data set, most current year. So in the European market. So anybody get an answer? And it may vary depending on which data set, because there's a Superstore 2020 and a 2016. I have 2016, but anybody get an answer for any of this? Anybody give it a go? Sure, you gave it a go. This is your career choice you've chosen. Nobody tried it out? Okay, let's run through it real quick. All right, so basically we're looking for month over month, and there's 5 different ways to do this, right? So we could do a custom calculation. I usually just would probably use a quick table calculation for this. So let's do order date. You can see actually the most recent year is 2015. There's not 2016. So that's gonna be the most recent year. I'm going to change this to month. I also need to filter for the year because that's showing all of the years. So let's drop this in here. Click OK. And then pretty sure I said sales. I can't remember I said sales and profit here. Oh, actually, I didn't specify. You could have done profit or sales. Either been fine. So for me, I'll do a bar graph. I'll rotate this, and we could do either dual axis or we could do a single axis. Either way is fine. I like the dual axis. So let's change this to an area chart. Different colors so we can see it a little better. And then let's do sales on our label. We got a filter on our market. I think I said European market. So there's Europe. Boop. And just change this to a quick table calculation for percent difference. And let's see. Looks like August 2015 had the greatest increase with 144.1%. And then we had our greatest decline. Looks like 50% here. So, and I mean, so for a KPI perspective or looking at this data, you know, this month right here may be an outlier. It's much higher than all the others. So we could expect a pretty heavy decline. So this 50% decline may not concern me too much coming off the high. But as an executive, you know, they may want to see what causes outlier here, right? So what causes huge growth in August for whatever products they happen to be selling, you know? So very common scenario. I have built many of similar things for many of my customers. So this is a pretty simple, straightforward. Okay, so I actually had one thing I wanted to show. 2 weeks ago, we tried to create a button that would reset the dashboard and could not get it to work. It's not something that I use. Aid is the one that requested it. I sent him a link to give it a try, but it doesn't like he's on this class today. Nope. But I still want to show it because it's for some of you using Tableau Public, this may be practical for you. Now, the reason I've never really had to use a button to reset the dashboard. I mean, I've used buttons to kind of drill through and do different actions. But when you use Tableau Desktop, the customer has a button on the dashboard that will actually clear everything. But it looks like Tableau Public does not have that option for some reason. I thought it did, but I guess it doesn't. So a student was asking me how to create a button to reset everything, and it turned out to be much more tedious and a pain than I thought it would be. But I figured it'd be worth stepping through with everybody just in case you needed to do something likewise. Now, to be honest with you, I haven't tried it. You may be able to just refresh the web page and it may reset everything. I don't know, but just for usability for our customers, let's create a button and just kind of mess around with that. So we don't need this first page, so I'll delete this. We're going to create 2 sheets to put on a dashboard, just any 2 random. So you could technically create anything that you feel like creating. I'm going to throw a region out here. Let's do sales. And bear with me, this is a little tedious. I've been practicing a few times, and every time I do it, there's at least one place I get hung up. So we'll fumble through this together. So we have our region here. It doesn't really matter. All we need is two sheets that are going to filter on each other. So let's do that. And then let's do something like subcategory, something that correlates with those that are tied together. So I'll just put this one. And we won't use these for the rest of the class. It doesn't really matter what you name this. Okay. And then let's put a quick filter in here. I'll change this to maybe like a tree map or something. It looks good. And then let's put, we have subcategory. Let's put category and filters. Click all. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. And click OK. And then I want to apply this filter to both the sheets. I'm going to click a little down arrow, go to apply worksheets. And I'm going to do selected worksheets, and I'll show you why. You don't want to use all because we're going to create another sheet here in a minute. Actually, we'll do all just to show you that why it doesn't work. So let's just do apply to worksheets, all using this data source. That'll be fine. So what that's going to do is going to throw it on the other sheet for me, so I don't have to manually do that. And then we have our dashboard here. So let's drag both these out. Again, it doesn't really matter how they go on here. Let's do fit tire view, this fit width. I'll make this just a little bit wider. Okay, so normally, let's say I'm going to use both of these. So click both the sheets and turn your little filter on here. Then I'm going to click a little down arrow, and I want to show my filter. So go to filters, and then that category filter that I showed earlier or applied earlier. I'll put that on there, and here we go. So let's just make sure that works. Click it off. It looks like it clears everything. Looks good. Now, if I click anywhere in these sheets, it will filter on the other sheet. That looks good. Now, the issue that Ada was bringing up, and you know, when you get a user who's in here clicking and filtering on things, you don't want them to have to like uncheck everything and go all the way back, right? So we had a button to just clear all these selections, right? So that's what we're going to create real quick. So I'm going to create a new sheet. We're going to create a custom calculation. So I'm going to go up here. It's this little drop down arrow right here. Do create calculated field. Now this is just going to be a string field. So I'm going to name this reset button. And then as a string, you can put single quotes or double, single quotes or double parentheses, or not parentheses, double quotes for this. It works either way. And I'm just going to put click to reset. Again, you can use single or double quotes, but you got to use the same one on both sides either way. Okay, click OK. Now I'm going to drag that reset button I just created into my text field. And it may be a little cut off when you drop it in there, so just drag your little column over so you have space. I'm actually going to drag this down. And we'll come back and format here just a second. And we'll call this reset button. So let's drag that reset button out onto the dashboard. You could either do it as a floating, or I'm just going to drag it under here under category. And I'm going to hide the title. So I'm going to right click this title right here. I don't really need to show that. I'm just going to hide it. And I'm just going to drag that up in the top right hand corner. Seems the most logical for me, so the user clearly sees it. And we'll format that here in a second. So we got to create an action, and here's the trick. Again, I told you this was tedious, so I'm going to go to dashboard, and actions. Now, one big piece that was tripping me up was, when you enable these filtering options here, these little funnels, right? So to use as a filter, whenever you do that, that's what creates these generated filters here. That's what these are. So you actually have to configure both of those as well, which I didn't realize you had to do. So I'm going to open up each one, just double click it. And this is visual 1, and I want to just uncheck the reset filter here. And I want it to show all values. I want it to be on select. That should be default. I'll click OK. And I'm going to do the same thing for the second one. So whatever, that's my Viz 2 or my Sheet 2. And then I'm just going to unclick the reset button here, just like that. Okay. Now, whoops, I didn't even close that actually. Open up the actions one more time, and let's create a new action here. All right, so this one is going to be, if I click the reset button here, so I'm going to uncheck the other two, I want it to clear all the values. So if I click the reset button and click off of it, I want it to show all the values, meaning that's basically saying I want to remove all the filters that are being applied. Okay. Also want this to be on select. I don't really want a menu. That wouldn't make sense. And then you have to also, here's the tedious part. So if you have a complex dashboard with tons of fields, you actually have to input each field you're using down here. Now, I know that's tedious. Again, on Tableau desktop and in your professional environment, you won't be using Tableau public, so that won't be an issue. So this is something you won't usually have to do. So I'm going to click Add Filter. And every field that I'm using, so I'm using region here, I'm using subcategory here, I'm using category, and then I'm also using cell. So all 4 of those fields, I need to make sure that I'm defining in the source field here, right? So I'm going to do category, click OK. You can ignore this missing fields on reset button. Click Add Filter. We have subcategory, Add Filter. We have region right there. Click OK, and then sales is the other one. I'm not 100% sure if you need sales, but we're going to put it in there. I believe you do, because I believe I tried to do it earlier without it. It was being a little finicky on me. So, all right. So we have all 4 fields that we're using in our dashboard here, right? So I'm going to click OK. And actually, I'll leave that up for just a second. Sorry, I went a little fast there. All right, I'll click OK. You know, a second, let me know. I can go back and click OK again. All right, and here's the trick. So let's say I click here and I click here. Let's see if this works. Cross your fingers. Yep. Okay. So I click it, and you can see it cleared the filters. Now here, if I click over here and I click the reset, it won't clear this one. And that's like I said earlier. So when I go to this filter, whoops, wrong one. I say apply to worksheets. I'm using this data source. That's actually an issue because since this is a sheet, these two are filtering off of each other. So it's getting a little confused when I say clear this filter, because they're kind of synced up together here. So I'm going to put selected worksheets, and I'm going to uncheck the reset button. I'm going to click OK. So now if I click it, it should, see it clears that selection. So now if I'm a user and I'm clicking everywhere and I got all these, let's say I had 20, filters and, maybe 5 dashboards, and the customer gets all turned around, I can come up here and just click this reset button, and I had to click it twice, and it will clear that selection for me. Pretty basic. Now, if I right click it, I would ideally format this. I don't want just this plain text. I would, let's see, I would do, I'll put it in the center. Actually, don't even like it want to do that. Let me go to the actual sheets. You don't have to follow me on this. I'm just kind of speeding ahead here because we got some other stuff we're going to do. So I'm going to center it. Probably make this text a little bold, make it bigger. So hit apply, click the reset. I might do the background color something. Oops, that's the text color. Well, you can do the text color as well. Let's see. do the background like maybe a gray or something. I don't know. I'm not the most artsy person here. That's actually pretty hideous, but you get the point. Let's fit that entire view. Whoops. Drag this up. And you can add custom, like you could have the like gray go around the border, almost like a key on your keyboard or something like that. But anyway, you get the point. You can format it to your heart's content. But now if I click all this, I can reset everything nicely. So there you go. There's a button. All right. So now let's move on to the parameters. So actually, first, anybody have any questions on that? All right. So let's do parameters. So we've worked with parameters in several classes. Parameters are a very big part of what you'll be using. You'll create a lot of dashboards, but you want them to be dynamic. And one of the easiest ways to make them dynamic is using parameters. You can do all kinds of things with parameters. We'll cover 2 or 3 things today, and then I have probably another 5 or 6 unique scenarios you can use a parameter for that I'll probably do in another class, because I just can't fit everything into this class here. So let's talk about a basic parameter. And I know this is going to be reviewed for probably 70–80% of you. So let's do click a little drop down arrow here, create a calculated field. I'm sorry, create a parameter. And we'll just call this sales or profit, or something along those lines. This will probably be a list. We'll make it a string. You can technically make it an integer, but we'll do a string, and we'll just put sales and profit. Okay, so click OK on that. And then, so let's say we go to this visualization here. So, and I'm going to do right click that parameter we just created, click show parameter. And, I use this analogy a lot. So a parameter by itself doesn't do anything, right? This is just pretty much an empty, there's nothing tied to it, right? So a parameter is kind of like, I think of it more like a light switch, right? So you click here and it flips it on or off or whatever. But it doesn't have any electricity tied up to it, so you put it usually into a custom calculation. Now there's some exceptions to that depending on what you're doing with the parameter. But for what we're doing here, I'm going to create a calculated field, and I'm going to call this sales or profit also. And basically, if our sales or profit parameter, and parameters always show up as a purple, fields show up as orange. So sales or profit equals, and then we'll put sales. Also, it's worth noting it is case sensitive. So if in your parameter you put a lowercase s, you have to put a lowercase s here. Then sales, actually, I believe it would be some sales. Else, some, oops. And see if it likes it. It may not. Oh, yeah, it likes it. So if that parameter I created, so right here we have the string sales, and I could also put else if sales profit equals profit. But since it's only 2 values, it's true or false. It's either sales or it's not. So that works for us. So just to show them something out, so we have sales here. So I click OK. I'll go to my parameter just so you can understand. This is what I'm putting in that calculation. So if this parameter has a value of sales that I select, which will be over here, then I want it to show, oops, it equals sales, then I want it to calculate sales. Right? Make sense, everybody? So click OK. So now, if I click here, this doesn't do anything, right? So, but now I drag this calculation, sales or profit. Where'd it go? Right here. I'll drag it into here instead. Right? Now, if I toggle this, the user has an option to toggle between sales or profit. So if I go to my other visualization here and do the same thing, let's do some sales and replace it into both the color and that size right there. And let's show that parameter control. Look at that. There you go. So it toggles. So now if I go to my main dashboard, now the user has the flexibility. I got to show that again. Sorry, guys. This isn't all lined up, but it doesn't matter. So now when I cycle through sales and profit, it cycles the whole dashboard. So the advantage of this is, I could have, quantity, I could have shipping costs, I could have many more values here. So instead of creating a separate tab for profit and a separate tab for sales, I can put them on the same one. I can have the user cycle through each to kind of see what his or her, what they're focusing on. This is also good for KPIs. So if you had KPIs across the top here with up and down arrows, it's also very nice to be able to toggle between those. We won't get into today, but you can also change the KPI. So if you have week to date, month to date, or maybe year over year and month over month, you can also use a parameter to switch between the two. I'll show that another time because that takes a little more, there's a lot of steps involved in that one. So we'll come back to that. Okay, so there you go. There's a basic parameter. So some other things we can use a parameter for. And there's tons of things. Hold on one second. There we go. Okay. So let's create another sheet here. And actually, let's create another parameter first. Got a reset button, our sheet. All right, so let's create another parameter. Now, this is part of the reason I'm probably going to be able to show maybe 2 or 3 tonight, because these are all, they got lots of steps in them. So bear with me. So let's create another parameter, create parameter. So we're going to create a, I think it was last week or the week before, we showed text boxes and how you can kind of dress them up and make them look a little fancier than your traditional, something like, let's do market, subcategory. Maybe sales. And this is a basic like grid report, right? Sometimes we want to like add colors and we do other things. But we can also use parameters to have the user be able to kind of like pivot these boxes and kind of dynamically change them to see what the relationships are. So I'm actually not going to use this. Let's create a parameter. And let's call this select dimension 1 header. So we're going to make probably about 4 of these. This is also going to be a string. It's going to be a list. All right, so it's very, very important here you pay attention to your spelling, also your casing. Like if some of you may put the first letter capital, some may not. Again, when you use this in the calculation, it does matter what your casing is. And also, I get hung up on this sometimes for slight misspellings because you do have to transfer all these values to a calculation. So let's do customer name. And I just hit the down arrow on my computer to go to the next one, so I have to click. Let's do segment. We can do ship mode. I'm just looking over here and seeing what we're using here. Let's do market, category, and let's do sub category. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's add one more. Let's do what's a good one to use? Let's do region. What I'm actually going to do is use my snipping tool to take a screenshot of this right here, because I need to remember these field names. You get to follow along, so you won't have the same issue here. So click OK. And I'm actually going to duplicate this. So just duplicate it, then go in and edit it and call this dimension 2 header. Oh, look at that. He comes in after I teach the thing he wanted help with. Yeah. All right, and click OK. And let's do that one more time, guys. And then click OK. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, guys. I forgot one thing too. I'm going to edit this. Need to add one more. I need to add in a for not available or no, nothing applicable. Click OK. I got to add that to each one. That was my mistake. I meant to do that. Perfect. One more. In a. And click OK. All right, does anybody need another second on all of that? Awesome. Okay, so let's look at, we have sales, profit, quantity, shipping cost. So we got to create one more. And this is quite a bit here. So we'll call this select measure here. Also, this will be a string as well. Do a list, and then let's do sales, profit, and let's do shipping costs. Let's do 3 for this one. So sales, profit, shipping cost. Leave that for just a second. Now click OK. All right, so we got our 4 parameters here.
Kobe, why did you add NA to the parameters which created first and not for the measure?
We can do that. Yeah. Good call. Let's try that. Yep. Thank you. I did forget that as well. And these NAs are just good if the customer perhaps maybe doesn't want a 3rd or 4th field in their selection. Oh, actually, so yeah, so with measure, we always want to measure. Actually, so yeah, I'm sorry, we don't need that. Was my mistake. But good call out. So the reason we don't want that is because we have to have a measure of some sort in the table. So I'll click OK real quick just to show. So if I do region, I don't want just these ABCs here, right? This isn't going to help anybody. Now, if we were, there may be a scenario we would use NA, but for the measure for this time, we're not. So let's, so now we got to create a calculated field. I will copy and paste this and put it in the chat just because this is going to be a little bit of type in here. So dimension 1 header. Make sure I spell this right. So we're going to use a case statement here. So we're going to do case, and then I'm going to do my select dimension 1 header, and then just put when. And then I need a little tooltip here. Sorry guys, the screen's going to be a little smaller on you. I need to be able to see my tooltip over here. Or not a tooltip, my snipping tool, so I can remember what I put. Oh, good grief. All right, there we go. All right, let me know if you can't see okay. I can make some tweaks here. So let's do when. We can do single or double quotes again. So I'll put when customer name, then customer name. When actually, I'm gonna do it the lazy way, guys. So this is very good for a lot of you who do a lot of SQL coding like myself, where you have lots and lots of lines of code. You might need to delete multiple things or type multiple things at the same time. So I can actually delete this and,
I use Alt Shift, which in Tableau I don't know what to use. Which one did you use in Tableau?
just alt and then click your mouse and drag it. That's all you do. And then you can, though it doesn't seem to work properly in this little custom calculation. Usually you can type, as many lines at the same time as you want, but whatever. Just a little useful tip for you guys. Let's see, category. Region, and then actually the NA. And this is going to be empty string here. So let's go up and correct them all. So this one will be ship mode. This will be market. This will be category. Subcategory. Region. I know this is not the most exciting thing, guys. It's tedious, but it is good to understand how these parameters can be utilized. So, oh, and I got to put end at the end. If you don't put end, it won't like it. So I'll put that in the chat real quick, just to maybe to help some of you, maybe not. There we go. All right, and I'm gonna click OK. And just like the parameters, we're just gonna duplicate that, save ourselves some effort. So we're gonna duplicate it and just go ahead and duplicate it again. And open these up. Oh, and don't double click, it puts it on a dashboard notes. Click edit, change this to a 2, delete the copy, and then change this to a 2 as well. Then we'll go down here and do this one too. And then we'll change this. Click OK. All right, now we have all those synced up. Then we got to do one, of course, for our measures. One second, guys. Okay, there we go. Okay. I actually don't need that snipping tool anymore. Okay, so create one more calculated field. And this is going to basically do the same thing. You can technically use the if statement if you wanted to. I'm going to do measure. We'll actually call this measure header. Or I guess we could do selection, measure selection. Case. And then we're going to do our select measure in here. Actually, let's just keep the naming conventions consistent here. So select measure. When I think we did sales, then, and you could do sum or average or whatever you want to put in here. When profit. We can do average profit, just to change it up a little bit here. And then I think we did shipping costs, if I'm not mistaken. And then end. Leave that up for just a second. All right, and click OK. If you need another second, let me know. All right, now let's see if all this works. let's drag dimension 1 header, dimension 2 header. And actually, customer name may have been a bad one to pick just because there's so many values. And you can actually put these any way you want. We'll do it this way for right now. I'll drop the select measure in here. And now let's show all these parameters. So show parameter, show parameter, show parameter, show parameter. Okay, so now if I click these, you can see it changes the dimension here. And normally I wouldn't stack them, or usually the customer probably wouldn't want them stacked left to right. So they would probably want like one up here. So you have both your axes working for you here. And this is nice because so you can cut and slice the data. I kind of think of it almost like a cube. And let's say it gives you different ways to slice this data and kind of view the relationship between it. Now, if you compare this with the class I taught either last week or the week before, where we did, we did color conditional formatting, did KPI arrows and stuff like that. You combine that with this dynamic customization here. It can really add a lot of benefit to your your simple text tables that traditionally would just stay like this and look like this. Now I'll say, probably 70% of the time, a lot of the customers just want this with some coloring in it. But this has worked for me a couple times where the customer wants to have the option to kind of play around with their data. A lot of your users will want to be a lot of them want self-serve type of dashboards where they can download and kind of manipulate it themselves. So some of them really want that power. So something like this could really give that to them. The Tableau doesn't do it quite as well as like MicroStrategy or one of the other reporting tools like that. So there's that. Also, there's one drawback of this. Well, it's not a drawback. So we actually have to fix this. So first, we don't need these dimension 1 headers. So we're just, I'd probably rename those dimension 1, 2, and 3, or, oh, actually, no, we could do, we could actually create a calculation to have it show whatever you're selecting here. So let's do that with that, and also the measures. So if you notice on the measures here, it doesn't really say what you've selected. So let's actually hide these headers so we don't need them. Let's stretch this out. So let's create one more calculated field. And this one will be, let's just call this measure label. And for this, we'll do one more case. So case when let's see, sales. Actually, you know what? Let's back out of this. Let's just duplicate this here. This would be easier. Then edit, and we'll call this measure label here. Select measure cells. Then instead of having the aggregation here, just put the label itself. Oh, it does not like that. So we're changing this to a string here, so it will show dynamically what we're selecting. Do that for just a second. I'm not going to do it for the dimensions, but if this was an actual project, I would, because I would want, this to say category over the top of it. I would want these to say, region or market or whatever these are. So just note that. But it's just more. I think y'all guys understand how to do this now. So case all that and click OK. Now I got this measure label here, and I should be able to drag this. Drag it there. Oh, no, that's inside it. Let's do, probably just drag it up here. There it is. Yep, profit. What's the best way to do this? There we go. That's the best way to have it. So we have the profit here. So now whenever I change this here, you can see it says shipping costs, sales. And again, you can do the same thing for each one of these dimensions here. You just do the exact same thing we did for this. Okay, so that's that. Any questions on that? All right. All right, so that's one way you can use a parameter to add some dynamic. And in your head, you know, I know a lot of you are still learning Tableau, but the relationship you're trying to connect in your head is basically creating a parameter here. You can do all kinds of things in here. You can create, you know, KPIs or over under, like show instead of usually we do conditional formatting and say, you know, anything over 50,000 is, you know, good, or under 50,000 is bad, depending on the customer. Or you can create a parameter so they can manually select and dynamically change what their threshold is for good and bad, right? So that's what I'm trying to get you to think about is, you know, anything on the dashboard that you want to be able to switch around and pivot and be dynamic with, you can usually do it with a parameter. So, and again, next, I think it's next class, but one of the classes coming up, we'll have a part 2 where I'll show you some other interesting things you can do with parameters. So anyway, this is what you can be thinking about. So let's do another one. This one's a little more, this one's coming in handy a lot. I've shown it before. So you can actually use a parameter to toggle these visualizations here. So if I wanted to do, you know, maybe a bar chart versus a map, or maybe I want to show something completely different, a map of sales and a bar chart with profit. I don't know an instance where you would need that, but toggling the visualizations comes in handy oftentimes for the user. And it can also save you from having to create a whole nother tab. Sometimes when you create these dashboards, you run out of real estate on how much you can fit on here. So instead of creating a whole nother tab for maybe just 1 or 2 visualizations, you can have a parameter to toggle, you know, what the customer wants to see here. And you can have them toggle the graph type. You can have them toggle, obviously, like the region. You can have it say market or something like that. Or you can toggle, like we did earlier, the measure here, right? So these are all applications you can use for the parameter. So let's do, we already have, what's up?
Can I interrupt for a second?
Absolutely.
Could you go back to your sheet 4 for a second, please?
Which one? 4?
Sheet 4, yes, please.
Yeah.
On the measure label,
Mhm.
no parameter, calculated field.
This one?
Yes. Did you copy it from the select measure?
Yes. You talking about this right
Okay.
here?
Yes.
Yeah, I just duplicated it and then ripped out the sum cells and all that.
Okay. Can I look at the select measure for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right. Makes sense. All right. So just remove the aggregations.
Yep. And that's also what makes it. So you see here, it's in the green for the measures, and this one's over here in the level. It's because this is a string.
The dimensions. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Perfect.
You got it? You good?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cancel that. All right. So let's do. We could probably just do 2. So you could actually do, you know, 5 or 6. There's no limit to how many visualizations you can have. I've had it before. So instead of creating a separate tab, because a lot of times we've had reports that have like 6 and 7 tabs, and it just gets really unwieldy for the customer. And to be honest, and usually if you have that many tabs, usually you're trying to cater to too many customers at one time. That's not always the case. Sometimes you need that many tabs. Like we have a big dashboard in our environment that's for regulatory compliance, for government stuff. And it literally requires, you know, 7+ tabs, plus it drills through to like, you know, 10 other reports. It's a very complicated beast. So sometimes you have to have all that, but usually you want to minimize that if possible. So just a thought there. So let's create a parameter here. And we'll just do 2 visualizations. Like I said, you can do as many as you want. So we'll just call this select graph. Make this a string. Make it a list. And let's just do a map and a bar chart. So this will be a simple example, but you can think about how to apply this in other ways. So I think that's all we need for this one. Yep. And click OK. You can let me know if I need to back up. Let's see, what are these other two we already created?
Hey, Kobe.
What's up?
We promised to get better with naming our sheets on our last class.
Yeah, we did. And you know what? We'll call this dynamic text box. And the sheet 5, I'm not even going to have to use. So then delete that. Thanks for calling me out, Matt. Keep me honest there.
Okay.
So actually, we'll just use these two visualizations here since they're already created. So we don't have to create more. And we can change. Let's just change this to state here. So just do a map. And this can be region. We'll actually change this to state as well. And feel free to just recreate them if you want to. Is it going to like that? Oh, you know what? It's going to want to do all of them. So let's do let's do country. There we go. And then we can sort these. Okay, so basically I have a map and a bar chart that both show in states. Actually, you know what? I'm going to backtrack. Let's do city because that would make more sense. So we got a United States here. We'll sort this like that. So you can do state or city. It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to think as the visualization toggles back and forth, what would be practical here. So okay, so we have two visualizations here. So we have our select graph, which is the parameter we created here, just like this. And we need to put this in a calculation. So I'm going to do create calculated field. This one's nice and simple. You just actually just drag that in there like that and just call this graph selection or something along those lines. And you don't need to add anything else. Just drop it right in there as is. And click OK. Okay, so let's show this this graph. So this parameter. So I'm gonna right click that parameter we just created and put show. I want to show up here. Now here's the trick. Whichever graph you're on, you need to select that one. So that when you drag this calculated field we just created, which is called graph selection right here, I'm going to drag this right into the filters. I'm going to check bar chart. You notice map doesn't show up, right? Because we selected here. And click OK. Now, when I click to map, it should hide this. Perfect. Just like that. And I'm going to name this bar chart. And let's go to our visualization 2. We'll call this one map. And we'll do the same thing here. I'm going to show that parameter. So I'm going to show parameter and I'm going to change it to map. And then I'm going to drag in that graph selection right there in the filters. Excuse me. Then I'm going to select map and click OK. So now if I toggle back to the bar chart, you can see it disappeared, right? And now if I change this to bar chart, that disappears and then this one appears. So this was a real cool little thing that I found a long time ago for a customer that was needing something very specific. So it's nice to have these little unique utility type things here, these parameters. So let's put this on a dashboard. Oh, it's actually already on there. Let's show that parameter. Oh, I don't know what I just said there, guys. Where's that? There it is. Select graph. I don't know why it's bunching all these up. It usually does not do that, but today it's wanting to. Okay, so now when I toggle, you can see they go back and forth, but I want them on the same sheet here. So let's go to map. Let's delete this sheet. We can put that dynamic text box right under it just to have a filler there, just like that. Wow, that's really bunching all that up. I don't know why it's doing that. And I got a dog chirping in the background. I apologize if that's audible to you guys. Okay. I'm not gonna spend all this time formatting this. Just leave it right there, it's fine. Okay, so here's what we need to do. So we're going to do a container. And I think it's, always get these backwards. You can technically use either one, but one works better than the other. So let's do vertical. I'll back up and do this again in just a second. I just want to make sure. No, we want the horizontal. So let me go back. Yes. Okay, so drag a horizontal container out. And again, you can actually use a vertical or horizontal. I just like the way visually that we set up these, but either one will work. So I'm going to put this inside the container, right? So we have my container here and then my graph, my map here. I'm drag it into container. And then I'm going to drag that bar chart also into the container. Now you can see it highlights to the side right there. Do make sure that you see this blue outline that lets you know you're in the container. If you don't do that, you'll be outside the container. So if you just have a gray box with nothing, that means you're outside it. So bring it into the container. And you can actually bring it to the top or the bottom. It doesn't matter. Okay. So now you notice one small issue, which we'll fix in a second. So if I toggle, you can see they go back and forth. But they're kind of staying in their respective areas. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to hide the title, and it will collapse whatever's not being used, right? Now, when I toggle back and forth, I can do that. And then all we need to do, we need that title. I'm not sure. I think the best way to do this. I might be able to just drag that calculated field. So I'm gonna create one more sheet and just call this, let's see, parameter header. And I'm just going to drag, I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work the way I think it is. I'm going to drag that in the text field, just like we did with our button earlier that we created, our reset button. Now let me see. Oh, yeah, it does work. It's not actually, I'm doing that wrong, guys. So let's go to our dashboard. I'm sorry. Drag a text. This may not work either, actually.
Hey, Kobe.
Yeah, this will work. Okay. Yeah, what's up?
I got a little trick I found out about dragging a text. When you do it on floating instead of tiled, you can drag a text anywhere on the dashboard.
Yep. So that is a good point. So that's what I would do with this button here. And actually, after you lay them, you can also change them to floating from here. The only catch with the floating, so I'm not a big fan of floating. The The problem with floating is it takes a way more formatting because you have to line everything up. And the issue with floating is if your customer uses a different aspect ratio or a different screen size than what you published on, it can actually shift everything around, which can be a really big pain for formatting. You can mitigate some of that with some of these options here for the range, automatic sizing. But I see a lot of students use strictly floating. I would heavily recommend not to do that. The only time I use floating is, say, if I want to do this button, I would highlight it, like put it over here in the corner on the dashboard. Or if I had a filter that only pertained to one sheet, I would maybe drag that filter, into that respective sheet or something like that. And of course, I would format it, make it look better than that. That's a good call out. Yeah. So floating is a very good, has a very good use case in certain areas. But for all you students who I see use nothing but floating, be very careful with that. But yeah, thank you. That's a good call out. And also the other issue with floating, when you go to troubleshoot somebody else's dashboard that's not working properly, and you have to make edits or change graphs, it can actually be quite the headache to edit a dashboard that's completely floating. And then one last thing on floating. There's one nice thing you do with floating where you can layer sheets on top of each other. I've used it in the past so that, let's say we select something and no data is showing like this. The floating container in the background will say something like no data for your selection or something like that. So it lets the customer know that the dashboard is not broken. It just means that they've filtered out all the data or something like that. So just to point out. So let's see. What was I doing? Oh yeah, the text box. So with this text box, and actually, this is actually a good example if I did floating. So if I did floating right here, this would be an issue when I published. It would misalign a little bit. But you do learn how to manage this. So a lot of times I need to get things to line up correctly. So sometimes you just have to throw them on there like this. I'll just put something there for right now, just to have that in there. And then you just rearrange everything under it. And it's pretty straightforward from there. All right, so sometimes you have to do something like that. It's really, oops, I'll put that outside the container. I may have messed that. Yep, sorry guys. When you drag containers, make sure you have the container selected. I did not have the chart selected. There we go. So when you click on something, this little drop down arrow will pop up. You can go to select container, and that will make your life way easier. Then I'm just going to drag this. I'm just going to layer these back under. So that is the best way that I have found to, if you're working with tiled, sometimes you have to do it that way, but it's really not that bad. Once you get the hang of formatting, it's really not too bad. And I did it again, guys. I did it again. Make sure you select the container. And now we drag it up. There we go. I knew I'd get it eventually, guys. There we go. So now we have this title lined up, and this title I could do, I'll just click it and do insert, do parameter, select graph. So now whatever I selected, we'll put up there and put sales or profit. Oh, actually I could put both because we have the sales right here. So sales or profit. Not quite sure how this is going to look, but we're going to try it. So we got sales. Actually, let's flip those around. I got those backwards. Let's center. Let's make this an actual header size text, put bold if you want. Sales bar chart. So there you go. So now if it's a sales map, sales bar chart, profit map. So now they toggle based on what you select, which is nice, right? So instead of having that title up there, that will work nicely. Everything's dynamic. This, we'll make this fit. We'll make this bottom graph here fit by width, because you see all this white space we have. We typically don't want that. And I don't want to do entire view, though it looks nice there. If I happen to change something that has a lot of something like that, you can see it tries to cram it all in there. So be careful with see, actually I think I locked up the dashboard on me. So you see it doesn't work there. So I'm gonna hit the back button, click that, and just make it fit width. So a good best practice is for we don't usually allow left to right scrolling, but up and down scrolling is usually okay. Left to right means you usually have too much data in there, and the customer's not gonna be able to interpret it. That's not always all the time 100%. It's just usually a best practice that we personally use in our environment. So now if I change it to customer name, everything fits, and I can scroll down. That looks good. Probably move this up, taking up too much space. I would format all these filters to make them look better, but there you go. So now you have all these parameters that are moving stuff around. It's nice and dynamic. This sales and profit, I would probably combine this select measure and there. That would probably be more appropriate. But anyway, I squeezed everything in there. So I think you guys understand what I'm getting at. Any questions on this? So now that I'm doing better about naming the sheets, I probably should start doing better a little bit about formatting some of these, because it's the finished product is important. But usually when I'm demonstrating, it takes a lot of time to format, so that's why I usually don't do it, because you could literally spend an hour trying to get everything to fit perfectly. If you're kind of a I don't say perfectionist, but if you're maybe a little OCD like myself, things have to line up right. I definitely don't like releasing things to the customer that just I don't feel are up to snuff. But for class sake, it's really hard to get everything formatted in time. So anyway, so I showed everything here. I would just clean up these and then probably put a little color behind these headers here. Something like put the background, let's make the caption. I forget the text boxes are a little bit different. You have to go over here to layout and there you go. But yeah, it looks a little cleaner. I like using color in the headers just because it gives some separation between the graphs. Because sometimes when you have a lot of stuff going on, everything kind of merges together. So just by adding a little color in the header, or just add a border, you can add border colors, just like a black line that goes all the way around each sheet. Just give some separation so things don't look like they're all just smashed together. It helps the customer visually kind of navigate the data. So anyway, I think that looks better. This is still a mess, but that would take a while to get cleaned up. I don't really feel like sitting through that. Well, that is all I have.